11 years ago, during the premiere of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, the character that you see here known as Rarity debuted in the first episode as one of the main 6 characters. Eventually, this main 6 group would expand to a main 7 about 5 to 6 seasons later, and initially be known as the main 8 or main 7 towards the end. But when it comes to Rarity, and I've talked about this before, and others like MLP, Silver Quill, and I'm sure Dusty Cat and Keyframe and Lightning Blitz, and anybody that's a fan of the show has pretty much said around the same thing, and that is the fact that Rarity is one of those kind of characters that just because she's presented a certain way doesn't mean she is. I mean, I did a video basically stating that you can't judge a book by its cover. And this was basically about 4.5 years ago. And it was one of my first videos on MLP that I did. In fact, I had done MLP stuff even before then, but it was one of my first initial videos as I was getting more into the fandom, being more intrigued with what was going on. And this was going into its 6th and 7th season, and I had been watching on and off, intrigued by what people were saying, people my age, about what the series was. And, Rarity was one of those characters that I gravitated towards. She, like Luna, grabbed my attention. It didn't help that she was voiced by, both of them, I should say, were voiced by Tabitha St. Germain, a very talented voice actress and actress overall. But I think it was just the way that, just like with Luna, the way she was presented. I mean, she had the look of a femme fatale. Basically the sex symbol, the eye candy of the show. Even though they presented other characters and even other members of the main group in a similar manner on several occasions, Rarity was always in that position. And basically, Rarity was the kind of character, as I mentioned, that, like in that one video, you can't judge a book by its cover with her, because even though she had that look to her, there was more to her. And her main quality, if you will, was her generosity. I mean, when you look at her, you would first think that there's no way a pony like her or a character like her could be very generous, but yet that's who she is. She's a very generous character. Now, does she have her flaws in the series? Absolutely, and they address those flaws in the series. And some fans have even said it's her falling victim to her vices, her disharmony version, basically falling back into the disharmony version of what what is the opposite of generosity. But throughout the 10 years, despite her flaws and everything, she still remains a very popular pony. In fact, when you do a countdown, or you have people do a countdown or a listing or a tier maker, if you will, of best ponies, Rarity is always at the top of the list, if not at number 1. Mainly because of, who she is. Basically, for the fact that she has the total package of an overall character. And I think that's why people are fans of hers. And here's the thing. People may not agree with Rarity in her relationship with Spike. Some would feel that, hey, she's taking advantage of him. She knows of his crush, and because of that, she takes advantage of him and stuff like that. But here's the thing. If they really wanted to emphasize that, as I've stated before, they would have addressed it a long time ago. but they didn't. They kept it in there. And when we got into like seasons 3, 4, and 5, and somewhat 6, it was very minuscule. It was like, it was there, but not on the level that it was in season 1, season 2, and then poking its head back around in, like seasons, towards the end of season 8, and mostly in season, well, not towards the end of season 8, but in season 7, towards the end of season 7, and into things like season 8 and 9, and then including Best Gift Ever and stuff like, and the movie, the relationship with Spike, after season 2 was very minuscule. But yet fans still kind of argued about it. They still, disdained it. But what's funny, as I've mentioned before, is throughout these 11 years of her existence, even though you've had fans that didn't like the relationship with Spike, with her relationship with Spike, there were fans that really outnumbered her when it came to those that did. And what's funny is some of those that never liked the Spike and Rarity relationship accepted it when they saw what Spike had grown into in the final episode. In fact, I think, but I can wager that even after Dragon dropped, there was some that, at once detracted from that relationship that started to accept it and kind of started to see that maybe it could work. Because like I said, why would they end the episode the way they did if maybe they didn't want to leave that open for the fans to interpretate? But besides her relationship with Spike, Rarity overall is just one of those characters that has truly developed and come into her own, in the cartoon, in the comics, and if not more so. I mean, the fact that, in Best Gift Ever, she gives the hat that she was going to give to Applejack to that other pony who is a fan of hers, who looks up to her. And she didn't have to do that. I mean, when that pony realizes and acknowledges, hey, I know this was not meant for me, it was meant for somebody else, and he tries to give it back to her, she declines. When he says he knows this was meant for another pony, for a certain other pony, not only does she decline his generosity of returning it, but she says, you're right, it was meant for a special pony, or a certain pony, and she puts it back on him. The thing is with Rarity, is I know to a lot of fans, she could be a very complex character. There's no doubt about it. But the thing about her is she will put her friends and even her family first and foremost, above all else. And especially those she cares very deeply for. And she cares very deeply for all her friends and her family. And like I said, she's willing to put them first and foremost. I mean, look at the lengths she went to make up with Sweetie Belle in Sisterhood Social. Look at that. She doesn't like getting dirty, yet she, along with Applejack, came up with the idea for both of them to be submerged under the mud until Applejack came, into the mud, or basically dove into the mud, making it look like she tripped in, or making it sound like she tripped in, and then Rarity would emerge, and she would keep her, and Applejack would hold her breath under there till the race was over. I mean, Rarity went that far. I mean, even in the pilot, in the second part of the pilot, what did she do? She cut her tail. She sliced her tail She cut her tail to give it to that Steve character, that Steve Sea Monster character, because he lost one half of his mustache. She didn't have to do that. Heck, she didn't have to, basically improve or get better at roughing it, as we see at the beginning of Campfire Tales. The point that I'm getting at is that with Rarity, she might be a very complex character to a lot of fans. She might be sometimes a character that, could be vain and everything. But she's a character that, when you get down to it, is the total package of what a character, a protagonist, should be. Especially, no offense when I say this, from the female perspective. A character that has an attractive look, but is not against having to get the hands, or in this case hoofs, dirty to get a job done. I mean, look at beginning of the end, the season 9 premiere, the final season premiere. She basically pushes the other members of the main group aside, the main 6 aside, to dig through underground to try to rescue her sister and her parents from being under the control of King Sombra. And of course, people would point out Spike as well. And that's what pushed her. And then when you look at the fact that, as I mentioned before, even for a brief few seconds in between dark and dawn, she was the only one out of the main group to run towards Spike when he got caught up in that tree that almost got eaten by that giant tortoise. And she was the first one to go up to kind of clean him off when Twilight rescued him from falling when he was covered in slime or drool or whatever the case was. I mean, yes, yeah, there's no doubt she has her moments. I mean, in the season 8 finale, when she's complaining about the bugs, the flies, Twilight's telling her, hey, Twilight's asking her, oh, well, have you used your tail to swat them away? And she's like, hold your tongue, this is what decorative means only. Yeah, that's kind of vain on her part, but again, remember, she's a fashionista. She's a fashionista, and sometimes being a fashionista, you don't want to get certain parts of you, messed up, because that's a trait that you feel that if it gets messed up, how are you going to fix it? And I know people would point back to the season 1 premiere, but you got to remember, she got her tail back after that. She was able to regain her tail after that. I think it was a wish or something that grew her tail back. What I'm getting at is this. Yeah, she has her moments, there's no doubt. But she overall is one of those characters that just because she has her moments doesn't mean she's a character that you cannot be a fan of, because you can. Again, like I said, if you were to ask a majority of the Brony analysis reviewers, if you will, who is best pony or one of the top best ponies, she'd be near the top, if not at the top of the list. And that's a fact. Because of the way she is. And again, it's not but just because she's voiced by Tabitha St. Germain, who does a wonderful job. It's basically because she has the whole total package from top to bottom, beginning to end. And she's a prime example of a character that has the total package. She's generous, sweet. She's a femme fatale kind of character. She's creative. She's got it all. Comedic, funny, you name it. And you can't ask for anything better in a character. So that's why when I look at these past 11 years, now going into the comics and everything, I can see why. I mean, I've been a fan of her. Like I said, she and Luna, both voiced by Tabitha, were the reason I started getting into this a lot more. But overall, she is one of the examples of a character that has the total package, has the total character package from beginning to end, from top to bottom. She checks off all the boxes, and that's why when it comes to a lot of fans, she is at the top, if not the top, as being considered best pony. But what do you guys think? Do you agree with what I had to say about Rarity? How do you feel about her overall? And that's all I can say, guys. So till next time, God bless. Take care. I'm out.